Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, Patronosaurus Reads. I'm Katie, aka Patronosaurus, and I read. Today I wanted to tell you the books I have DNF'd. Right now, I have my laptop in front of me. I don't even know if it's in frame. I feel like it's probably not, but like, here it is. I have a separate DNF shelf on my Goodreads. If you are not aware, you can create a separate exclusive shelf on Goodreads. So you're currently reading, your want to read, and your read shelves are all exclusive shelves, which means that no book can be on both of those shelves or on multiple of those shelves at the same time. And you can create more exclusive shelves. So I don't count my DNFs as read books because I didn't finish reading them. And for a while I had them like on a read shelf and on a DNF shelf, and I didn't like that at all. So I had to do a little bit of Googling to figure out how to change that. But I did create its own separate DNF shelf. So my books that I've DNF'd do not count towards my Goodreads challenge, especially because I DNF early. If I was at like the 80% mark and I decided to DNF a book, I might still count it, but I usually call it quits pretty early because I don't have the patience. So yeah, I have 11 books on my DNF shelf. I'm just going to go in order of when I DNF'd them. I only started DNFing recently, like relatively recently, and I don't DNF a lot because I know my reading tastes pretty well, and I usually can pick out a fairly good book, and I'll read most of my books all the way through. But these were ones that I just couldn't do, and I'm going to be telling you why. Let's go. The first book on my DNF shelf is Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. So I started reading that a few months before the movie came out last year. I was listening to the audiobook. Maybe I would have liked it better in physical form because there were a lot of characters. There were a lot of voices. There were a lot of things happening. And I'm fairly certain there's some kind of family tree or something at the beginning of the physical book that would have helped me a lot. But there were just a lot of things happening. And I didn't really care about those things that were happening, and I didn't care about the characters, and none of them were likable. And then there was a scene where there was some violence against animals, which I had heard about from Trina from Between Chapters. She had mentioned that when she was talking about this book. There's a dogfighting scene, and that's not something that bothers me or is any kind of trigger for me or anything. Like, it's not super intense. I shouldn't say that it doesn't bother me, because it did bother me. But it's not super intense, but still, I was like, I'm already not caring about this book and these characters, and I don't care about anything that's happening in the plot. And then, like, this extra gross thing is happening. I was just like, I'm not going to finish this book. I don't care. And I was kind of mad because I've been waiting for a while to get it on hold for my library. And then I didn't like it, and I was like, yeah. So then I just returned it to the library through Libby and let somebody else who had it on hold hopefully enjoy it more than I did, because I was not a fan. The next book that I DNF'd was The Rise and Fall of Dodo by Neil Stephenson. I think it's co-authored, actually. Who's the other author? And Nicole Galland. This was it. The cover always intrigued me. I'm sure you will see it here. It just looked really interesting, and then it was like 30% off at Barnes & Noble. I was like, yeah. It's a really long book. It's like 800 pages, 752 pages. Thank you, Goodreads. Goodreads knows everything about every book, ever. And it's essentially supposed to be some time travel thing. So the narrative kind of bounced back and forth from this woman who somehow gets involved with this secret government agency that's trying to figure out how time travel works. And then it goes back in time to her being trapped in like the 1700s or something. But this was kind of like a hard sci-fi. Like, there were lots of scientific terms, and that's usually not my jam. I'm much more of a space opera-y, like, fast, fun, rollicking adventure type of sci-fi reader. And this was so far above my head. A lot of it was really tongue-in-cheek and like really funny, but it was just too much for me. This is one that is not a permanent DNF, it's a mostly permanent DNF. So maybe someday, especially if my reading tastes change a little bit into what some people might consider a more mature reading taste, whatever that means, then this book might be more my speed, because I am still really interested in it. But I did I did get rid of it. So if I want to read it, I'm not going to buy another copy. I'll get it from the library or something. My next DNF was Binti by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a really short novella that's another sci-fi. Maybe I just don't like sci-fi. Oh yeah, a lot more of these are sci-fis, yeah. This is like a super short novella. It's like 100 pages. And I was listening to the audiobook, which is maybe 2 hours long. And I just did not click with the writing style at all. And I really thought it would be the type of book where I did like the writing style, but I just didn't at all. Her name is Binti. She's going to this really prestigious university, and it's like in space. And she's pretty sure she's going to be disowned from her family because a big thing with her family and her tribe is that they stay close to the earth. And she expects to be ostracized and probably never be able to return home, but she's like, this is my dream to go to this fancy university. And then I think on the spaceship some kind of alien invasion happens. I did not get that far. Again, this is 96 pages. And I just did not click with the writing style. I could not bring myself to finish listening to this audiobook, which would have maybe taken an hour and 15 minutes of my life. But I just couldn't do it. Like, I returned it to Audible. Like, I went on the Audible website and I was like, I don't want this book anymore. And they were like, okay. So, it's just not my jam. Yeah, the next book I DNF'd was the Alexander Hamilton biography by Ron Chernow because it's 800 pages of exceptionally dry history. I really love Hamilton the musical. I've seen it live in Chicago. It was incredible. I wanted to read the source material. I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and dig into it. And I tried. I read like 150 pages, which in a normal book that I read would be about half to a third of the book. And then this was like not even a quarter of the book, and it's just so long and so dry. This is another one that maybe I'll listen to the audiobook someday because I think that would make things easier. But yeah, I could not do it. The next book I DNF'd was Lifelike by Jay Kristoff, which, listen, you guys, I got approved for this from NetGalley. Like, I got approved for Jay Kristoff ARC, and this was when I didn't have a channel, like I didn't have anything. I had an educator profile, because you can sign up if you're like a school librarian or a regular librarian or a teacher or something, and NetGalley will ask you if you intend to use this in your classroom and stuff like that. But I was like, oh my god, like everybody freaks out about Jay Kristoff. I think I had read Illuminae at that point, but no other Jay Kristoff books. But I was like, oh, everybody freaks out about Jay Kristoff. I've been approved for Jay Kristoff ARC, like, oh my god. And then I started reading it and I was like, yo, this is trash. I really did not like it. I don't know, this is another one where the writing style was not my thing. It is watered down a little bit in Lifelike compared to Nevernight, which I have read and I did like. But it also seemed like the story was going to be pretty basic, and it didn't seem like it was going to do anything really new and innovative, so I decided to just call it quits. This is another one that maybe I will try again. Most of these are maybe I will try again. The next book I DNF'd was Queen of Shadows, the 4th book in the Thornglass series by Sarah J. Maas. I read the first 3 books relatively close together, and then I kind of had a reading slump for like 8 months, and by the time I tried to pick up this book, I didn't remember what was happening. I didn't remember like what situation all the characters were in. I remembered very little, and I was like, this is really difficult to read. I don't love this writing style. Like, I don't know, I was just removed enough from the characters that I was like, I don't care. So I have officially DNF'd the entire Thornglass series. This is one that I'm not going to come back to. I mean, never say never, but there are no immediate plans for me to ever finish the series. If I really care that much, like, I'll look it up on Wikipedia or something. I don't care. The next book that I DNF'd is actually like I'm gonna come back to this. This is definitely a temporary DNF, which is Lair of Dreams by Libba Bray, the 2nd book in the Diviner series. I was just getting really slumpy, and I was listening to the audiobook, and then my loan ended from the library, and I just didn't feel like rechecking it out. And by the time that I was thinking about this book again, it had been a long time, and I didn't want to restart it, but it hadn't been long enough that it was like a whole thing. But I own a physical copy of this book, and I love the audiobooks. I listened to the first book on audio. So this is definitely I'm going to come back to this, and I'm thinking maybe this year around Halloween, like in October, like very spooky times, that might be when I try to read this book again, because I desperately love this world and I want to get back into it. I just have to be in the right mindset. Okay, the next book that I DNF'd was The Light Between Worlds by Laura E. Yeah. It's almost 100% The Chronicles of Narnia. And it was too reminiscent. I'm okay with Portal fantasies being kind of similar to other Portal fantasies, because it feels like there's only so many things you can do, especially if you are trying to do a callback and kind of honor a very famous fantasy series that was your predecessor. But The Light Between Worlds was like, oh my god. It was too much like The Chronicles of Narnia, except then they come back, and then the sister who was super into it, basically the Lucy of their family, disappears. And I think you're trying to figure out the whole time if it was ever even real or if it was some kind of shared hallucination or something. But I don't know, because I didn't finish the book. I think the writing was also just kind of boring. It didn't drag me in. It wasn't interesting. So I just called it. The next book that I DNF'd was Kingsbane by Claire Legrand, the second book in the Imperium series. The first book was Furyborn, which I really liked. I read fairly quickly for like a 600-page book. But again, another arc that I got approved for. But I've discovered, I think it's really difficult for me to read high fantasy on an e-reader. And I don't know. I used to be super into high fantasy, and it's really hard for me to read it now. So this is another temporary DNF. I have to be in a very specific mood to read this book. I want to read it. I want to finish it, especially because it's an arc that I was approved for, that I'm guessing was a highly anticipated arc that lots of people wanted, and I just couldn't get myself to do it. I read the first 25%, and then I was like, I can't do this, and I DNF'd it. And then a couple days later I was like, okay, I think I'm ready. And I opened it up again on my Kindle and started reading, and I got to 27%, and I was like, no, I'm not in the mood to read this book. No, I cannot do it. Someday. I want to read it. I want to finish the series. I like Claire Legrand's writing a lot, but this is just my brain was not in the right headspace. I'm such a mood reader. I was like, okay, loud truck. I'm such a mood reader, so I bounce around all the time. Next book I DNF'd was Lysistrata by Aristophanes, a very, very old Greek play about the woman of all the... It's a very funny concept. All the women of the Greek city-states are tired of the men fighting between themselves, and so they decide that until all the city-states stop warring against each other, all the women are going to withhold sex and not do it with their husbands. That's so funny. It's one of my roommate's favorite plays, so she told me I had to read it. I was like, okay. But the translation I had was actually a very good translation that made it really easy to understand the jokes, because, there's a lot of sex jokes in this play, because that's kind of the point. But it was still written in such a way that it was really hard for me to read. And that was actually a book I think I was going to try to read during the reading rush, which I absolutely failed at. And I was starting a new job, and I was training, and I was tired, so it just wasn't going to happen for me, and I decided, forget it. The final book I have on my DNF list, as of right now, is Swipe Right for Murder by Derek Millman, another NetGalley arc that I was approved for that I do want to finish eventually, but it's a mystery, as you can guess by the title, Swipe Right for Murder, about this teenage boy who has an experience through a dating app in a hotel room with an older man, and he falls asleep, and when he wakes up, that older man has been shot through the window, and he's being framed for this murder, and he's like in the middle of this kind of maybe government spy conspiracy. I'm not totally sure. He's like trying to solve the mystery of how he got himself in this mess. But I had just read quite a few mysteries, and especially right before that, I had read The Woman in the Window, which I didn't really like. So I was all mysteried out, and the last mystery I had read was not one that I particularly enjoyed. So I kind of just overwhelmed myself with this genre. So again, one that I want to try to get back to, especially because it's an arc that I got from NetGalley. Like, I want to read those as much as I can. But I gotta be in that mood. That's why I've not been requesting as many arcs from NetGalley, because I'm like, as soon as I get it, I feel the pressure to have to read it, and then it makes me want to read it less. And I get, like, anxiety about it. Those are the books I've DNF'd. Let me know if you've read any of them and if you think that I should continue. Honestly, most of them are books that are, like, temporary or maybe DNFs. There's only a few that I'm like, yeah, I really will not read that again. So let me know in the comment section, or you can follow me on my Twitter or Goodreads, which are linked down below, so you can let me know. Leave a comment, like and subscribe. That's what YouTubers say. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.